Hi, this is Sue Jackson of the Book by Book blog, and I'm here today with my May reading wrap-up. Today I'm going to try a new approach and try to make this quicker than my usual monthly wrap-ups. Now, you don't know this because I've edited it out every time, but I've said that at the start of every monthly wrap-up this year. But really, this time I mean it. I've recently recorded 2 huge recommendation videos where I recommended more than 30 books and went through them all in each of those videos in like between 20 and 25 minutes. And I was saying to myself, if I can go through 30 books in that amount of time, I can definitely get through my monthly wrap-up in less time. My first book read in May or finished in May was My Beloved Life by Amitava Kumar. This was a Booktopia book for this year. That's that annual book event I go to with my mom in Vermont every spring. And this was her favorite book this year, and I loved it as well. It is a beautiful novel, beautifully written. It is about an ordinary man's life, but set against a historical backdrop that's pretty extraordinary. And this could be said, as one of my blog readers pointed out, this could be said of many novels and of all of our lives, that it seems like we're living ordinary lives, but set against, the backdrop of everything that happens during our life historically is pretty amazing. So that's what this is. It is an intimate portrait of one man's life. He's born in 1935, India. So I learned a lot about Indian history that I didn't know. In this novel, we get both his perspective and that of his daughter, because that's a part of his life, this other life that he created. And you see, even though it's an ordinary life, you see the impact he had on the people around him and the amazing things that were happening in the world around him. And it's just a beautiful novel. As you can see, I've still got all kinds of Post-its in there. I need to hurry up and transcribe those into my quote journal before I return this to the library. It's a tender, warm, witty novel that is both eye-opening and relatable. Next up, I listened to on audio Sand by Hugh Howey. Now, I bought my husband this book and its sequel, Across the Sand, last year, but I happened to have them on audio, and this was perfect for my trip to Vermont and back, and for the week following that. I finished it in May. My husband and I are huge fans of Hugh Howey because of his Silo series, Wool, Shift, and Dust. Wool just blew us both away, and the rest of the trilogy was just as good. So Sand follows in those footsteps. It is a completely different story, completely different setting, but with the same kind of elements that made the Silo series so good. So this is a post-apocalyptic world set in the central United States where everything is covered with sand now. And our old world is buried down below that sand. And as with the Silo series, we don't know how this world came to be. It just is. Now, the focus here is on a group of siblings. They all earn a living as sand divers. And the youngest brother is hoping to join his older siblings in that occupation soon. So sand divers use this unique technology that's been developed in this society to dive down into the sand, no different than diving down into the ocean. But in this case, they're looking for artifacts, which are things from our world that have long been buried under the sand. So they're looking for things that might be valuable, that they could sell, or even things that might be useful, that they could still use. And of course, some things start to go wrong. In this case, there are some pirates that start a chain of events. As always with Howey, The plot is twisty and suspenseful and fast-paced, really engaging, but he also focuses very much on the characters and what they're experiencing. They lost their parents a while ago, and so each of the siblings is dealing with that differently. So that is Sand by Hugh Howey. I will be listening to the sequel, Across the Sand, very soon. I listened to a YA audiobook last month called Girls Like Us by Gail Giles. Now this is, I think, a little known book. I hadn't heard of it before. I think I probably got it through Sync's free audiobook program, which unfortunately has ended this year. But this is about two girls. They've both just turned 18 and graduated from high school. They refer to themselves, as everyone else in their school does, as SPEDdies, short for special ed. And the two of them have been paired together in a state program to move into an apartment together and try to gain an independent life. Biddy was born to a drug-addled mother who dropped her off with her grandmother, who really was no better. For 18 years, she's told Biddy that she's stupid and useless. Biddy can't read or write, but she's capable of learning things, and she has a very kind disposition. Quincy's mother's boyfriend hit her in the head with a brick when she was just a baby, which resulted in both disfiguring and disabilities. But Quincy is quite capable. She can read and write. She's an excellent cook. And so the two girls are set up in an apartment upstairs from an older woman named Elizabeth. Biddy's job is to clean the house and help take care of Elizabeth. And Quincy's job is to do the cooking and to work in a bakery part-time in the town. Now, these girls have endured years of abuse and mistreatment. It's really sad. But this isn't a sad book. This is a beautiful book about the two girls coming back to life, learning slowly and gradually that it's okay to open themselves up and care about someone else. And gradually, the three of them become a family. This is a beautiful novel. And like I said, I don't think many people know about it, so please check it out. And it was stunning on audio because the framework around the novel is that each of the girls is keeping an oral journal on tapes. And so what you're hearing is from the girls themselves. It's definitely a little-known gem that deserves more attention. Next, I read Honey by Victor Lodato, a book I'd been meaning to get to for a month. This just came out in April. I met the author at Booktopia in 2017. He was there at the time with his book Edgar and Lucy, which is also excellent. And Victor sent me this ARC with a note that said he put his whole heart into this novel, and it shows. I finished this book with tears in my eyes and just hugged it to my chest. It is that kind of a novel. It's about an 80-something woman who has moved back to New Jersey after a lifetime of living in New York and LA. She originally left her hometown because her father was a mob boss. And Honey witnessed some really horrifying violence as a child and a young girl. So as soon as she could, she got out of there, never looked back. But now she's in her 80s. She's lost her closest friends in LA, and she's come back to her hometown to kind of reckon with or make peace with her past. This novel is funny, it's inspiring, it is poignant. It's really about this woman in her 80s who discovers that she can still change after all these years. It's about life, loss and love. It's about aging and forgiveness and second chances. And as I said, the ending is perfect. On audio, I listened to The Sky at Our Feet by Nadia Hashidi. This was a wonderful middle grade novel about two kids that each have serious problems, but team up together and go on this adventure through New York City. The main character, Jason, is 12 years old. He's only recently found out that his mother is in the country illegally. She's from Afghanistan. His father was from Afghanistan too and worked as a translator with the US military. But once his father died and his mother's student visa ran out, by then she had Jason and she stayed in the country. So he's just found out about this, and shortly after that, he sees his mother picked up by immigration. He doesn't know what to do. This book also takes place in New Jersey, so he hops on a train and takes it into New York City. But he arrives in Penn Station, gets lightheaded, passes out, and hits his head. So he wakes up in the hospital. He is terrified. The police want to know who he is. The doctors want to know who he is. He is terrified to tell anyone his name because he's afraid that they'll find out about his mother, that they'll also take him into custody, that maybe he'll never see his mother again. The reason he came to New York was to find his aunt. It's really his mother's best friend who lives in the city. So Jason's pretending to have amnesia. He meets another girl his age in the hospital named Max, who's dealing with her own chronic medical issues. The two of them hatch an escape plan, and they're off through New York City. So there are some serious topics at the heart of this novel, and it doesn't shy away from those. But this is also a really fun novel, full of adventure, humor, suspense. It was just a wonderful story and very heartfelt. The last book I finished in May, before embarking on my big book summer reading, was The East Indian by Brenda Chari. This is also a Booktopia book, but from last year. You can see the theme last month was catching up on some older Booktopia books. This was my mother's favorite book last year, and so I've been eager to read it. For some reason, I hadn't gotten to it yet. I picked it because it's short and I thought I could get through it before Big Book Summer. And I loved it. My mom was right, and everybody else at Booktopia. This is historical fiction based on a real-life person about the very first person from India to land in America in the 1600s. So it features a 12-year-old boy named Tony, obviously not his original name in India, but the English name he's taken on. After his mother dies, Tony sails from the eastern coast of India on one of the British East India merchant ships to London. He's doing pretty well in London. He finds a job. Remember, he's only 12. He's living with another Indian immigrant and his wife. Things are going pretty well. He's met a friend. And then, one night, Tony is kidnapped and finds himself on a ship to America with like a dozen other kids. I didn't know this was going on at that time. These kids and a lot of other people on the ship are taken to Virginia, and they have no choice. They have to become indentured servants. So it is fascinating history, but also it's about this young boy, definitely a coming-of-age story of how he endures some hardships and overcomes them, eventually beginning to realize his dream of being a medicine man or physician. The historical backdrop is fascinating. Not only what it was like in Virginia in the 1600s, but also what medicine was like in the 1600s. Pretty scary. And then the whole thing about the indentured servants, I knew about indentured servants. What I didn't know was that there was this period before slavery when they were bringing men and women and children over from Africa and from other places, but to be indentured servants. Now, You can argue it wasn't much better than slavery. However, there was a chance to earn your way out of servitude as an indentured servant, which of course did not exist later in slavery. By the end of the book, when Tony's an adult, slavery has become the norm. But it was interesting to me to learn about this bit of history that I didn't know about. So excellent book. If you like historical fiction, this is fabulous. Finally, on audio, I listened to A Woman Is No Man by Etaf Rum for my book group in May. This was a stunning book. As you can see, it was a very good reading month for me. This book was on like every top 10 list back in 2019. It was a Read with Jenna pick for the Today Show. It's about 3 generations of Palestinian American women in Brooklyn, in this one family. Ezra came from Palestine when she was only like 17 or 18 to marry a man she had never met before, and crossed an ocean and moved to a place where she knew no one. The book features multiple points of view from the different generations. So there's also Ezra's mother-in-law, who is a traditionalist. This whole family is very, very traditional in their beliefs. Women have a very limited role. Their only role is to get married and have children. No, to have sons. And the third voice featured here is Daya. Daya is the youngest daughter of the mother-in-law, so Ezra's sister-in-law, and she is just coming of age now herself. She is 17. She's graduating from high school. Her dream is to go to college. And this is a little, there are 2 timelines here. The 90s when Ezra first moved to Brooklyn, and I think it's 2008 when Daya is coming of age. Daya's mother, of course, is setting up meetings for her with men and their families. She says she has to get married. Daya doesn't want that. So you've got this push and pull between the traditional way of life and what Daya wants. So this is a very powerful novel. It's also a brutal novel. And everyone in my book group agreed it was a difficult read. Several people rated it a little lower because it was so difficult. There's a lot of domestic abuse here, and it is not only accepted, it is the norm. Now, there are signs of hope and change at the end, but there's a lot of tragedy in this book as well. We all agreed it was really great to read about Palestinian Americans at this time with the war going on. I guess the author, it wasn't in my version on the audio, but one of my other book group members said, the author mentioned that the novel was very autobiographical, which is horrifying. So we all agreed that while this was the author's story, and most likely the story of many Palestinian families, it is not, it shouldn't be taken as the truth for all Palestinian American families. I'm sure there are some that have moved beyond some of these horrifying beliefs. But we also agreed this is a novel about Muslims, but these same things we know happen in the extreme arms of any religion, including Christianity. So these are, these are things that are very difficult to read about, but really important to know about. So it was a very powerful novel. I loved it on audio. I think the audio really helped bring the different characters out. Just a stunning novel that I won't soon forget. So that's what I read in May. Please let me know in the comments down below what you enjoyed last month. Tell me what your favorite book was.